Muy buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches, amantes del rock y del metal. Bienvenidos y bienvenidas a Conexión Rock Radio. Como siempre, les saluda Johnny González. Y de igual manera, para mí es un gusto estar aquí con ustedes, llevándoles a todos ustedes, mejor dicho, todo lo que es la actualidad del rock y del metal en diferentes partes del mundo. Y por supuesto, noticias de actualidad en la mano de sus protagonistas. Hoy tenemos una entrevista de personalidad muy, pero muy interesante. Una banda que es considerada de culto y que son considerados también los fundadores del término death metal, y que a través de los años pues ellos han acuñado dignamente este género musical, y que ahora pues vamos a estar aquí en conversaciones con la voz y fundador de la banda Possessed. Me refiero al buen Jeff Becerra, que lo tengo por acá ya en el Zoom, y que para mí es un tremendo gusto en conversar con un músico, con una persona de gran trayectoria. Jeff, good night. It's a big pleasure to talk to you in this occasion. We share with the audience and the fans from Possessed around the world about the upcoming news that the band had in this year. Welcome.
Hey, hello, Johnny. It's good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
First of all, how are you feeling in these days, Jeff? We know that you are facing some serious health challenges over the years.
I'm recovered. You know, I broke my leg, but, you know, I had a titanium plate and 10 screws, and took a little while to recover, but, you know, I'm back in action, so I'm ready to go. We're getting ready to go come play for you guys, you know?
Yes, we are glad that you are healthy and ready for the action that the coming tours that the band have in the next weeks. Okay, Possessed has been playing shows around the globe, especially in many cities in USA. What has been some of the most memorable festivals or recent international gigs that you and the band had enjoyed in the last months, Jeff?
Oh, well, we did the last tour was it was the Latin America tour. Of course, we did a few shows out there, and that was really great. You know, touring around there, we love the fans out there. We feel, you know, it's like our home away from home. You know, and then before that, we did the 54-day tour with Testament and Creator in the United States, and that was really killer, man. That was such an honor, and those shows were spectacular, and we've been, you know, really having a good time. Before that, I believe we were in Europe. We played the Wacken again, and that was amazing. I got to see all my friends out there, and that's a really monster show, and it's you know, it's fun. Every show is special in its own way. You know, I have a great time. I love to play. You know, it's my life, and as long as, you know, I can make people happy, I'll be up there playing. You know?
About the tours, in the next weeks, you visit several countries around Latin America, including a historic first-time show in Honduras, my country, followed in Costa Rica and, of course, South America. How do you feel and the rest of the band about playing in for the audience here in Central America that waited decades to celebrate the legacy of Possessed in a live show?
We've been trying to get to Costa Rica a few times now, and because of whatever catastrophe, it fell through. So I'm finally able to get out there. I've been waiting a long time to come play, and Honduras, you know, I've never been there. It's all new for me. So, you know, of course, it's always exciting coming to new lands and playing for new people. And you know, I'm just a kid from a small town, and to get to travel the world and play for you guys, it never gets old, man. It never gets old, you know?
Yes, we're looking forward that the people here in Honduras, we know that people from Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua come to join together here in Tegucigalpa, the main city, to see you and sing many classical songs from Possessed. About the set list, Jeff, what surprise have you and the rest of the guys about this upcoming tours? The people are looking forward that you playing the best classical set list in the history of Possessed, or you focus in something special, or bring something new for the fans in this special occasion?
Well, we're going to play the Seven Churches album for the 40th anniversary in its entirety, which we've never done before. So that's going to be fun, you know. And then, of course, we want to have a longer set, so we're going to play some stuff from, you know, all the albums, basically, and really try to mix it up and give you guys a hell of a show, you know. It's going to be, you know, our best set ever. I'll tell you. I'm really looking forward to it. We're very excited.
You got the right about this point. Listening to Exorcist, Pentagram, Evil Warriors, Seven Churches, Satan's Curse. Oh my God, we be a big party that the people enjoy with you in this special occasion, especially here in Honduras.
Yeah, man. I can't believe it's been 40 years. It seems like it just goes by like that, you know. It was just yesterday we were jamming in the garage, you know. And you know, at the heart of things, at the heart of the matter, is that's, you know, especially in the early days, we were just club bands, and I never really saw past. My whole goal was to play local shows, and I would have been happy there, you know. But then I guess the need arose, and people, we never knew Possessed would take off. You know, we're not a big band, but we get to travel and do all the things we love to do, and it's just exciting. It's exciting to come out there and you know, see everybody out there, and I love meeting the people and playing, and it's going to be great, and I'm really looking forward to it.
About the last album, in this case, Revelation of Oblivion, was a monumental or big comeback after 33 years of silence. I remember when I sent to you a special review of the album, I remember The Age of Christ and Revolve the Peace. I want to know, Jeff, what are the driving force behind returning to the studio and releasing new material after a such long break?
You know, I originally planned on getting Possessed back together after we broke up, well, everybody left me. Larry went on to Primus, or Bond losing to Primus, and the other guys just wanted to live normal lives, and I can understand that. It's tough to be in a traveling band. You have to dedicate everything to it, and you know, it's all or nothing. And but you know, I wanted to, as bad as it sounds, I didn't want to wake up and be my age and only have played in a death metal band. So I had to do the things that made me happy in life, which was to attend college and to you know, get married and have children. And you know, I worked a normal job, and you know, you know, college was great. It was a fantastic experience. I made, you know, straight A's. I was the president of my class, and then I went on to work for a large HMO hospital. And then you know, the drive for Possessed was like always that light at the end of the tunnel that kept me going. And the drive just became too much, and a lot of people were saying, hey, you know, come back and play, and I just, you know, I had to do it. You know, I had to do it.
We know that behind the reason, the family, you have another side projects, like example, Side Effect, Blizzard, Misery, Marauder, or Sub-Zero. I think when you put on hold Possessed, you decided dedicate or put more time in these side projects, right?
I mean, honestly, after I got shot a couple of times, I was a bit lost and trying to deal with that. But, you know, I still played music, and my friends came around, and it was almost them being benevolent. Hey, you know, do you want to do this with us? Do you want to do that? Kind of coaxing me on and getting me back on my feet. And, you know, it really took a lot to get back out there, you know, in a chair and all that. And it was small steps, you know. It took a lot of courage and tenacity, if I do say so. And that's not something I was ready to do right off the bat. But, you know, I took it in increments and made sure everything was cool, and, you know, just did it, you know. But right now, it's if you know me, I'm not the kind of person that just pumps out music. I pump it out when it feels right, and when it feels right and it's good, I don't want to just release anything. I want to release good stuff. So
you recently released some material that you had in tapes, archived live material. In this case, live at the Balboa Theatre, January 1986. I want to know, Jeff, how important it's for you to rescue and share with classical moment with the fans, especially the younger fans, the younger ones who never saw the band live back in the day?
I think it's important to keep the history of things, and and you know, it's fun. You know, people like to see those live albums, and you know, it's for the collectors and for the hardcore and for the people that do want to experience what it was like in the '80s. You know, the sound quality's, you know, very rudimentary, but you can kind of get the feel of how things were back then. Back then, it wasn't these giant shows with mixers, and it was just all music and very raw and very intense. And it was all or nothing, you know. It was make it or break it. And it was those times were very critical. Like when we played then, it was for the most hardcore of fans, and you know, there's no faking it with those live shows, and there's no faking it with Possessed. And I wanted people to kind of experience that raw kind of emotion that came out, you know, no frills.
Looking back on all the tours that Possessed done over the years, I want to know, Jeff, is there any particular memory or tour that stands out of you at the most powerful or emotional moment that Possessed and you experience in the entire life?
Every show is it's a fantastic blur. Every show is unique in its own way. It's all or nothing. I try to play a show like it's my last show, my last minute every time. I want everything to go right. But you never, you know, we've never had like a perfect show. It's always like a tightrope with no net, you know, and it's always fun. It's always exciting. And most of all, it's like I don't really watch. I don't watch TV or the news, or I watch a lot of movies, you know, on apps and stuff. But my entertainment is the audience. You guys are my TV. So I trip off, you know, the power of the crowd, and it's fun, man. It's fun to see the whole experience, and you know, through that kind of lens of being on stage, it is amazing. You know, I'm right there with you guys. You know,
I had the feeling that you and the guys all together here in Tegucigalpa will be many generations of headbangers, see to you for very first time, enjoy your legacy, sing your songs, and says, was impossible many years ago that one iconic band that possess, in this case you, come to play in these countries with the big surprise that the promoter made impossible, and we have possessing Honduras in a few weeks.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I said, I've been trying to get out there for a while. We've had a couple failed attempts, and so it's really exciting to come out there and finally play for you guys, you know.
About the special celebration for several churches, Jeff, we know that you revisite in a live show the album entire. I want to know, is there some special plan for me, a kind of special edition or deluxe edition, expanded edition from several sources, or consider you the album have enough that have the place in the history?
Well, you know, those were the tracks we had back then. So there's no extra tracks at all. That was it, because we were writing an album a year under contract, writing as fast as we could. Well, we did the album, the EP, and Beyond the Gates, like back to back. And then we broke up, so I had plenty of lyrics, which made it, you know, onto the Revelations. But you know, that kind of is it. The Revelations is kind of the expanded, you know, what became of the extras and the future of those, and what we tried to grow into, what I wanted to grow into musically, you know, so that it's, you know, accumulative of all the sitting around and thinking about which direction you want to go in. And you know, and so will the next album. The next album is well into the writing process. We're not going to play it yet, but we're when it's recorded, you know, that'll be the next continuation of Revelation. So yeah, man, it's going to be fun to play everything, a piece of everything, new and old, put it all together, and put a hell of a show on. Hopefully you guys really enjoy it. I know I will. So.
I had a personal question to you. perhaps it's a kind of reflection about the term death metal. Possess, and especially Seven Churches, are credit the first death metal, and of course, Seven Churches is the first death metal album, properly speaking, of course. Others says Chuck Schuldiner perfected the genre with the band Death. In a few words, Possess invented the genre, and of course, Death perfect the formula. What is your perspective on this ongoing debate that the fans make over the years, and how do you view the role in this origin for the genre death metal?
As you know, Chuck was a good friend, and I don't see death metal as just being one thing or ever being perfected. I see it as a spiritual freedom. You know, it's not necessarily a combination of certain elements that make a predictable outcome. It's and Chuck and me were very much similar on our thoughts there. I don't know if you know this, but Chuck, before Scream Buddy Gore, he moved down into the Possessed fan club president's house to be nearer to us, you know, to be nearer to me. And so I remember when Chuck was showing me the precursors of Scream Buddy Gore, he was very, very into Possessed. He said, "Listen, Jeff, I sound just like you, right?" And he said, "Is that okay?" And I said, "Hell yeah, it's okay." And it was that moment I realized that there would be more than one death metal band, because it was really branding. Like, we knew that there was thrash metal. We knew Venom was black metal. You know, there's speed metal, you know. And we said we want to make, you know, Possessed is very unique. At that time, we were carte blanche the heaviest band on the planet. And we said, let's call ourselves death metal. And that will separate us from the other bands, because people will say, Possessed is that death metal band, right? So naively, I thought that Possessed would be the only death metal band, and would be known as that death metal band, right? But then when Chuck came around, just really, really enamored and wanting to be closer to the scene, I knew it would take off. And so I think that without Chuck, I don't think it would have ever become a genre. I think that it was a combination of me and Chuck, and that what followed after that really made, you know, it take off. Because Chuck, to put things in perspective, Death was probably quadruple as big as Possessed after, and you know, we pretty much ended when they were hitting their heyday, and they just took off. They were wildly successful, and so, you know, they're monumentally, they were a much more commercially viable band that was sellable. And Possessed has always been kind of a weird, niche-y band that doesn't sell as much. So yeah, it took that. And I honest to God don't think that, I think it was a combination. I don't think that death metal would have had the staying power if it wasn't for Chuck, you know. So, and he was a good friend, a really good friend, and a great guy.
In a few words, fascinating that you share your memories about Chuck, about the big impact that Possessed and Death made in the scene around the world. I want to know, Jeff, about this point, this recent answer. Did you ever have the chance in touch with Chuck, or feel that this a kind of mutual connection to the music had you share in common?
It's weird because I was very much into. Remember, I was just a kid back then. We were young teenagers, and so when I met Chuck, I didn't know who he was. He was just some kid sitting on the couch, and he was really like, "Hey Jeff, come here." So I sat there, and he's like, "Check out this riff, right?" And I was like, "Hey, whatever, I'm doing whatever." "Hey, check out this riff, right?" And then pretty soon he just kept riffing and riffing. I was taking notes. I was like, "Dude, this dude's like a riff lord, right?" He was just busting out with riff after riff after riff, and so I just kind of witnessed the way his mind worked. He was just very intense and very into his craft, and of course that was really inspiring. We were both very individual and doing what we're doing, but Chuck wasn't noticed. He was noticeably amazing. So right from the get-go, you know, Chuck was a genius in his creations, and I think that I was in good company. It was good that you were sitting on our couch at the right time, and I was just it seemed like a normal day back then, but now that I look at it, it's like there are no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason. Like when I broke up with my first band, Blizzard, I just happened to meet Mike Terrell, who was of similar mindset to be the heaviest band in the world. That shit is amazingly coincidental, because nobody was thinking that back then, I just happened to meet that one guy that's like-minded, and so it's crazy. I think it was destined to be. I think that bands like Possessed and Death, it was just something that was happening. We were rebelling against, the music of the day was so cookie cutter, and even thrash, with the few exceptions of the hard thrash, it was very cookie cutter and just borderline glam back then. And I hated glam. I still hate glam. And I was very much into punk and just metal, and I wanted to be heavier, and I couldn't get heavy enough, And I think that Chuck saw that in me, and he heard it in our music, and he wanted to be closer. And it was just really cool to be part of that scene. And then, of course, you had bands like Sadist and Autopsy, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And it's been a really neat history, and just visceral and organic the way it went. And after bands like Possessed and Death, I used to call it a race to the bottom, because at that time Possessed was the heaviest, right? But then there was a new band that said, we're the new heaviest. And then there was a band that said, we're the new heaviest. And that just snowballed into what I think became stuff like brutal death metal. And, and then there were the other, death metal is definitely not one thing. It's so many Osric tenors. You have symphonic death metal. You even have, folk death metal. You have the whole European set, and I think that while California was Possessed, first wave death metal, I think that Chuck very much created that Floridian sound, that Florida death metal, right? But then you had bands like Suffocation that created that East Coast vibe, right? So, and these are all very different species of death metal, right? And so I think that at this time, what I would like to see is that just kind of blend together and just become a bigger and more vicariously complex genre. I don't want to see it just oversimplified into one thing. I would like to see death metal become, I think in order to survive, it's going to have to get more complicated and more unique and more original. Everything hasn't been done, and I think that, people are starting to figure that out.
Do you think bands like Semper Venom, Possessed, and the early Sepultura share a common sonic or ideological ground in shaping the extreme metal in the mighty of the 80s? Or how do you see the connection between those early pioneers across continents? The internet never exists. If perhaps the people knew the existence of the band was through tape traders, like example.
Yeah. I mean, of course. I mean, I think that we have a common thread that back in the early mid '80s, you have to remember that in the United States we were going through a hardcore economic depression. It was the biggest depression since the 1930s. There were no jobs. There were wars. There was really nothing to do where I grew up in my town. There were gangs, street gangs. There was violence. There were race wars. There was no work. The steel mill closed down. And so I thought, like, what am I going to do? People like me didn't go to college. I could join the military. I could work at a factory. And I didn't want to do that. And so music was my way out of that. And it was my only way out. It's the only thing I had that I felt like I could do or was any good at. Of course, later I learned that it was capable of going to college, but back then I would have never even fathomed it. I didn't think it was possible for somebody like me. And of course, I couldn't afford it either. So yeah, and I think that bands like Sepultura and Death and we had that common thread where the music was everything, and it was rebellious, and we did have something to say, and there was never an easy road. It was always hard, and we never did anything the easy way. We always did it the hard way. It was the only thing that we did, and it's hard to explain what it meant, but it was everything and the only thing all at once, you know. And I think that it really shows in these type bands, you know. So I sound like an old man where I say, "Oh, kids have it easy these days," you know. But we didn't have the internet, you know. You had to literally make your own way, you know, and it was crazy, you know. It was hard. It was tough, you know. And
yes, as you mentioned before, that appears many genres inside the death metal, extreme metal, technical death metal, brutal death metal, the local scene in Florida, like example, Cannibal Corpse, Dicey, Demolition Hammer, Brutal Tooth. In the other part of the world, like example, Bolt Thrower, Imtomb, many bands. Also,
these are all real bands. Like Deicide is as real as it gets. Like I love Glenn's work. It's truthful, you know. It's almost spiritual in its revelation of honesty. You know, I love that, and I think that it really shows when people are not posing; they're actually living what they're practicing what they're preaching. You know.
And the extreme metal also allowed to possess. What does it mean to you to see your influence echo on so many younger bands around the world until today?
Yeah, I mean, unintentionally, you know, I would have never thought that happened. I was just expressing my angst, you know, and I remember after we recorded Seven Churches, you know, I was 16, Larry was 15. I remember thinking, man, people are probably gonna hate this. Like, I love it, but like it's too much too soon. Like there was nothing like it, you know, and I thought, and you know, it was in many ways it was too much too soon, and we're still suffering that. Because a lot of people say, oh, you can't understand what you're saying. You sound like a barking dog. It sounds like fucking noise, you know. And I was like, yeah, like fuck it, you know, like that I was doing my job if people were hating me, and you know, I'm still as hated and loved today as I ever. So I guess I'm doing something right.
Have you ever considered writing a kind of memory or special documentary about your life and the history of Possess? Many people say, wow, this man has a lot of inspiration in your story.
I am shooting 2 documentaries, but with the pandemic, we had some problems with funding. I'm shooting the one documentary, which we will continue. I was just talking to, the actor Peter Stormer, who is filming my documentary, and he said, oh yeah, we're going to finish it. I said, I think I'm cursed. I've had 2 documentaries fall through because of the pandemic. He's like, oh, you're not cursed, Jeff. We will finish it. So I just talked to him like yesterday about it. So hopefully that will come out. And the second one, the producer has had some health problems, so it's on hold. So we have 2 very different documentaries in the work. One with the famous actor Peter Stormer. You know, he played Lucifer on Constantine, and with Keanu Reeves. You know what I'm talking about, right? He's in the Graven video, and the other one's with Midnight Productions. So hopefully those will come through. I was starting to write a book. I still have, but I keep getting sidetracked. I keep wanting to go and play shows, and I keep waiting for a good ending. You know, like I keep feeling like wait till I'm on the upslope, because every day it feels like I'm just starting out. Like it never gets old, because every day I'm like, oh, when I get here, then maybe, people will understand what I'm saying. So I'm always looking for the next step, and I'm always waiting for that finale, So maybe I'll find it someday, but I think the chase is better than the catch,
Ok, damas y caballeros, pues ya saben, estén al pendientes de las próximas fechas que Possess va a estar anunciando próximamente. En la descripción del video vamos a estar ahí compartiendo los lugares y las fechas que la banda va a estar presentándose en esta próxima gira y que, como lo comentó nuestro invitado aquí hace unos cuantos instantes, van a estar celebrando su icónico Seven Churches completamente en vivo. Les comento, la formación actual de Possess, para la gente que quiere conocer a la banda por primera vez o que ya los siguen a través de los años, está conformada por Daniel González, Jeff Becerra, por supuesto en las vocales, porque él al principio pues era bajista. Daniel González es el guitarrista, Robert Cárdenas es bajo y coros, Claudio Screamer es el guitarrista y por supuesto de las nuevas incorporaciones pues aparece Chris Aguirre II, que ha estado trabajando pues con bandas también de vieja escuela en el caso de Irax. Pero bueno, vamos a continuar acá dándoles a todos ustedes esta interesante entrevista de personalidad con un gran personaje como lo es Jeff Becerra de la banda Possess. Okay, Jeff, I had another interesting question or a kind of trivia for the fans that have their discography in the hands. Through those in the history of Possess, you work with many iconic producers. In this case, Randy Burns from Seven Churches, Carl Kennedy from for Beyond the Gates. Joe Satriani, in this case, work with you for The Eyes of Horror, and of course, Peter Target work with you as producer from Revelations of Oblivion. What do you remember about working with them, and how did each contribute to shaping the sound of the band over the years?
I think what these guys, who were all veterans in their own right and very established musicians, they saw us as these kids that were on the cutting edge, you know, and we were lucky enough to be on that edge where these famous producers were like, oh, I want to, you know, it's kind of a little, you know, like a gold star to have worked with this band that was like fucking crazy, you know what I mean? And I think they saw it as that, and it was really cool how they came in and processed what had never been processed before and made it make sense, and they just rolled with it, and that it was a very amazing experience to see how the veteran pros like operate and how skillful they were, because you know, it's just amazing because it's so simple, all the technicals, and they're just so good at what they do in their craft. And I always say that, you know, we'll start with Randy. He was crazy. Like he was like, you know, he just jumped right into it. Of course, he had worked with Megadeth, and you know, we were definitely partying and just really living that satanic dream back on Seven Churches, and Randy was very much with us, right? And for some of the tracks, we just got super high, and not just like one of the tracks. And we just tried every different thing. It was like a freaking circus. And then for Joe Satriani, he was the polar opposite. Very sober, no drugs, no alcohol. We were in the Fantasy Studios in Berkeley where they filmed they mixed the English Patient movie, right? It's the tallest building in Berkeley, and they have these multi-million-dollar studios. Triumph was on one side of us, and David Lee Roth was on the other side of us, right? And Joe Satriani, at that time, you could take lessons from him in Bay Area Magazine. He had an ad, guitar lessons, Joe Satriani, and that's how Larry started taking what we lived in Pinole, and he was a guitar teacher at Fiat Music, and he was like astounding. Like he was just like this wonder boy, like this prodigy, like, and everybody knew that. So everybody was scrambling to get lessons, and everybody went to Joe, including Kirk Hammett and Steve Vai. So Larry was a very raw, very, like, he was a prodigy in his own right, but he was rough. And when he came into to Joe Satriani, he came out like polished, you know what I mean? And Joe had a way of taking that raw coal and forging it into a diamond in a very short time. He did it with Kurt, he did it with Steve, he did it with Larry, and countless other people, right? So when we seen Joe, I said, as long as you don't fucking touch a guitar, like, I'll be cool, but if you pick up guitar, I'm just going to feel like a 3-year-old with a broken hand, right? He's like, oh, cool. So he just, you know, very sober, down to earth. He got exactly what we were doing, and that was fun. With Carl Kennedy, I'm jumping the chronology, but Carl Kennedy, he was in the Rods and I think Manowar, and he told us all his stories about touring with Jimi Hendrix, and he had the 8mm films of him and Hendrix together, and he was like, had stories, like he knew Blue Cheer, the band, and we went and partied with them one night in the studio. It was fucking cool, man. Like that whole experience. So we were living in the studio, the same place we did Seven Churches at Prairie Sun and Katati. We lived in this like bungalow, and then we'd walk across the street to the studio, right? Like a little court. They had a 50-gallon drum filled with buds. They had a beer machine. It was like a Coke machine, but it just had Heineken in it. You know, we had like bottles of vodka in the freezer and, you know, methamphetamine. And it was fun, man. We were wild as fuck back then, you know, and I think that that was part of it too. That was, but these producers were also crazy with us, but also a very grounding and anchoring, you know, mechanism Peter Tackern, I think he's probably the most successful person in extreme music. I mean, the guy owns the town that he lives in. He's got his own studio in that town, like $1 million studio. He fucking produces. He's got his bands. You know, the dude is successful. You know what I mean? He's got his fingers in so many pies, and he's just super cool, like down to earth, right? You know, it was great, man. Like, it was fun. Like, these people are, the old school metalheads are a different breed than the new school. We're fucking rough, you know. I hate to say that, like, but we're hardcore. We drink, we cuss. We're not politically correct at all, you know. That's why we're so easy to cancel us, because we just talk a lot of shit. We don't give a fuck, you know.
Had a big surprise that appears the name of Joe Satriani in one production from Possess. It's very strange. It's very strange that a big guitar player like Satriani work with you. It's a kind of something unexpected for the people.
Yeah, it's a trip. Like, you know, a lot of people love that production. A lot of people hate it. I always thought, like, in my mind, it was like, because we paid like $85,000 for that EP. Like, back then, it's not like now. Like, you'd be hard pressed to spend that much money now, because back then you needed entire outboard effects and tubes and all kinds of equipment. Now you just need a fucking laptop. You know what I mean? And a microphone. Like, it's streamlined now. You don't need all that shit anymore. You need a big room for the drums, and that's about it. And, you know, like, literally, we're making these albums on laptops, you know? So, I mean, we had a real computer for the Revelations, of course, but all the outboard is just gathering dust. Everything's digital now. It's crazy. It's a whole new, and that made me nervous, because I didn't want to fuck up the sound. So, Revelations, I did 50-50, half old school analog and half new school digital, you know? I didn't want to just go, you know? I want to get the best quality and the most high production value, but I don't want to overproduce it, you know? And so that was a must, you know? And Peter was right there. Peter wanted to go completely old school, right? And we went round and round about this, like, oh my God, because Peter's like one of us. We fought and argued, we laughed, it was great, man. It was like really, everybody was brutally honest the entire time. It was great, you know?
Yes, I will be honest with you about this point, Jeff. I don't have nothing against the people, the young people that listen to music from the phone.
Oh, the young people are the future, you know, they are, you know.
That's your point. When listening to music on vinyl, on cassette, I understand your point that you recorded the last album 50-50 in digital and analogical.
Yeah.
I had the feeling that you are a kind of analogical guy in this point.
I am. I'm an analog man in a digital age. I'm a fucking dinosaur. I think that people like me and a lot of us, we're the last. The last of the dying. The first wave, but we're the last of a dying breed, and it's up to the kids to from here on, you know. But like I say, until I can't do it, I'm going to be up there, you know.
About this point, do you think the underground spirit of the 80s metal scene still exists today in any form?
I do, absolutely. But I think that they gleaned the best part of the 80s. You know, it's all stars. The 80s were like the miracle years to these kids, right? Truthfully, they were bleak and poor and rough and hard. And so the music was the heaven in all of the hell back then, right? So they took the heaven part and they left the hell behind. And good riddance, man. I wouldn't want these kids doing all that shit anyway, you know? Like, you know, all the crime and the drugs and like the gangs and the violence and fuck all that. You know what I mean? Take the good shit and move forward. You know what I mean? Like,
The people that love your memory, your memorabilia, that are collectors or possess, you know, the official albums, the booklets, the live albums, the compilations, the EPs. Do you still have your original demo tapes, stage gear, or other relics from the early days from Possess? Any cool story behind those, my friend?
do I have original? No, I don't. I really don't. Because so many tragedies. I've lost everything, you know, 100 times over by now, and had to start over from scratch. But I do have everything I've ever done in boxes of the reprints. You know what I mean? Like, I have every color, they're all up here on the shelf, like boxes of 10 greens or 10 purples or 7 churches this one or 7 churches. So I have all of that, you know, and on vinyl, and you know, I have, goddamn, I got the demos all on the whole, like, we have the whole stacked shit, I can't remember the name of the company that released the
About this point is the edition from Floga Records, right?
Floga, yeah, that's it, yeah.
It's very interesting.
And also Vic Records, and we did some special releases on Agonia out of Poland. There's a lot of ones that I did that have little secret, like my name backwards on the back, and back where I was doing little sneaky releases. And you know, I was thinking the other day, like, I think that we might be cursed, because it seems like everybody I jam with, so many people have died. Like, everybody, and tragic deaths, like gunshots, like our old singer from Marauder got shot in the head. Rest in peace, Jimmy. Drug overdose with Jimmy, the other Jimmy. Another drug overdose with Steve. Alcoholism with Danny. The first singer, well, Possessed was never Possessed till I joined. They were a Maiden Priest cover band. I don't think they ever played a gig, but that singer before I came in committed suicide. Recently, Brian got in a shootout with the cops, our first guitarist, and was shot to death. I don't know if you heard about that just a couple weeks ago. So the guy on the demo in the Model Massacre 6, and he was a great guy, you know, and I just want to, like, I'm going to dedicate this entire tour to Brian Montana, because the news did him dirty. They were so concerned with saying, oh, it was a clean shooting, and the police were correct. They forgot to say that, you know, Brian was a great guy. Like, he was had a software engineering company. He was a virtuoso guitarist, funny, talented in martial arts. And I think that they could have went 1,000 different ways with that story, including mental health issues. And, you know, what led to that, you know, because people don't just do that, you know. There's something that led up to it. And I think that was just never explored. I think that the media doesn't really do. It's so easy to cancel and demonize people in death metal, and you either have to, and this is another one of my problems, you either have to be that super Disney friendly face of death metal, or just not talk to the press. And like, I don't know where I go in that, because like I'm an ugly old hard bastard, and you know, and so I don't know. I think we're good people. We're just not politically correct, I guess, because of our anti-religion and stuff like that. And I just don't think that they did Brian justice. And I just want people to know that Brian was a hell of a guy, and he will be missed, and that you know, I feel my sympathies go out to his family.
We know that many people around the world, respect the legacy that you and many musicians that passed the ranks from process over the years lives with the life a big part in the history that shaped the band and keep alive the legacy over the years. It's very appreciated about this point.
I mean, back when Possessed started, like it was the satanic Hispanic. You know, we're crusaders in that kind of anti-religious movement, and I think these days, you know, people don't really see that part of Possessed as much. You know, they see it just for the music, and that's fine too. I don't know. I think that Possessed is the spirit of rebellion, but also a release from the day-to-day normal, like a kind of a fantasy kind of. I don't know how to explain Possessed. Possessed is a whole bunch of things, but at its core, I hope it does people right and give them, you know, some sort of inner peace and happiness, I guess, you know. Because to me, when I listen to death metal, like a lot of people, it makes them frantic. To me, it makes me, you know what I mean? And a lot of people tell me that Possessed helped them through hard times, and I like that. I like the positive effects, and it's weird that you come with this kind of this gritty, negative, like fuck the world thing, and it turns out to be a positive vibe on people, you know. So it's a trip. Like the more angry and devilish I get, the more people it makes them happy, and it's kind of a weird dichotomy there, you know.
We know that you are focused in make a kind of celebration or make a special celebration for 7 churches. I don't know if the next year a kind of request for the fans as you revisit them Beyond the Gates.
Yeah, that's right. That's coming too, huh? You know, everything's possible. Maybe we'll do a double thing. We'll do both albums or something, you know. I can't wait for the new album to come out, like, because, you know, you can only, like, the new album's completely different. I don't even know if it'll fly. It's a completely different animal than but I think all our albums are very different than each other. They're the same but different. So hopefully people will love the new album when it comes out too. But yeah, that would be nice to do the anniversary of Beyond the Gates. You know.
Okay, my friend, what message do you for all the people that enjoyed this interview? And again, thank you so much for your time today, your house, for make this special report for Conexión Rock Radio. And we're looking forward to talk again in the future with you and give continuity, the history, the big history that Possessed make with good music around the world.
Latin America, Honduras, Costa Rica, I'm coming for you, Brazil, Chile. I can't wait to get back out there. Stay blessed, stay possessed.
Bueno, ya saben, damas y caballeros, espero que hayan disfrutado de esta tremenda entrevista con nuestro invitado, como lo es Jeff Becerra de la banda Possessed. Y como siempre les hacemos la más cordial de las invitaciones para que asistan a las diferentes fechas que la banda va a estar realizando en su gira por Latinoamérica y en especial aquí en Centroamérica, en Honduras y también en Costa Rica, donde van a estar celebrando por todo lo alto los 40 años de 7 Churches. Soy Johnny González, estas fueron las entrevistas internacionales en Conexión Rock Radio, pendientes de la próxima de nuestra serie, y como siempre les decimos a todos ustedes, que el rock y el metal no falten siempre en su dieta diaria, y nos veremos por ahí en algún lugar, en las Siete Iglesias. Que la pasen muy bien.